All right, welcome YouTube. We got a good one for you here today. We are going to cover the top 5 fishing spots for Pleasant Valley Reservoir here in Bishop, California. Before we get to those 5, we're going to talk about a few things about this reservoir that are important to know. One is access. If you aren't I want to say a pretty good walker, meaning you don't have to hike, you don't have to be a hiker to visit this lake, but you do have to have some walking skills. There are really only a couple spots that are within a short walk from your car, and the rest of them are pretty far walks. I'm talking about 3/4 of a mile minimum to up to 2 to 3 mile walks. So most of it is pretty flat and along a paved road, which is a great thing. And a lot of people choose to ride bikes here. So if that's your thing, load up your bikes before you head up here and do that. You can ride in, and some people secure their bikes and lock them up, but I've never heard of anybody getting their bike stolen. So that could change, I guess. But for right now, your bike is pretty safe. I've only done it a few times, but it is something that is definitely worth it. It cuts down a lot on the amount of time. And as of late, I'm seeing e-bikes are becoming all the rage up here to get to these spots. So with that, you should know that in the winter, it's extremely cold. As you saw that one of the last videos I uploaded, it was near zero out here when that video was shot. And that's in the middle of winter, of course. And in the summer, it could get in this canyon. You're looking at lava. These are lava rocks that this lake is surrounded by, and it is an oven in the summer. Air temps get up around 105 in the summer, and inside these walls can get up way above 120 degrees, even though the water temp can stay low because they pump the water out of Lake Crowley, and the temps can stay nice in the water. However, the air temps can get quite high, and there is zero shade at this lake. So just something to consider. Go prepared, plenty of water. Even consider bringing an umbrella or something. I know some people that have brought tarps out here. Just something to think about. If you guys have any questions or stuff later, always post up in the comment section below these videos, and I will get back to you about those questions. So let's get into it, guys. Spot number 1, and let's talk about how to get here first before we get into spot number 1. So for spot number 1, you need to go north on 395, and where you see Lower Rock Creek Road, well, you make a right into Gorge Road, which is this road here. Follow that off. You're gonna make a right, and it's gonna kind of zigzag down and make a little right into here. Now we'll put a little clip of a video I shot in this area in the corner over here just about now. What that looks like early in the morning. It is a spectacular view from right here. And people are illegally camping in this area, and I really get pissed about that because LADWP does not allow that. And it's just a matter of time before they completely ruin the access for fishermen and everybody else out here. So don't illegally camp out here, guys. You're just going to screw it up for everybody. It's not allowed. So with that, you pulled on down. You're going to go down this steep road. We can zoom in now. You're going to go down this really steep road early in the spring. And if it just snowed, watch out for ice right here. It could get real icy, and then you're going to park. Now, this is another important thing before we get to the actual fishing spots. Is right here when you park. There's limited parking on this north side. It isn't a free-for-all. They do have a few spots in this area here, but it's very limited. Most of this has been converted to for the power plant workers, but sometimes they open it up for anglers alike. So if you get here and you are allowed to park here, just be respectful. Don't park your huge truck sideways through 3 or 4 spots. Okay. Everybody's got to fit in here, and just be respectful of that and understand. But other parking up here, you could park up here all the way up as far as you can see, even up into here you can for overflow parking. So there's usually plenty of parking. You get kind of busy in some of the holiday weekends and earlier in the season when it's not as hot, a lot of people will visit this spot. So these spots fill up quick. Some people start parking along the road up here, and I don't recommend that. It's really narrow and you can get into some problems. So just be aware that you want to get there early if you want to get a spot, especially if it's in some peak season time. So with that, go get yourself a little drink and snack. Pause the video. This is going to be a long one, guys. We get into major detail with this stuff, and we're going to put lots of little things in here for you guys to learn about Pleasant Valley Reservoir. And if you're watching it, that's probably why you're watching it. So settle in, get yourself a drink, hit pause, come back, and we'll get started. Let's head on over to the first spot. So spot number 1, let's do it. All right, let's get into spot number 1. So after you leave the parking lot, you're going to walk down the road. So how do you get to that? Well, once you go through this parking lot, there's a little gate right here. You can't miss it. We'll put a little tiny clip of what that looks like, maybe in the lower left corner there for you. But yeah, you can't miss this, guys. Just walk on through, walk down the road, and you'll start seeing views of the Sierra. Don't forget to look behind you. Lots of great views. And after a while, you're going to see where the reservoir begins, and the Owens River will pour into it. Now, important thing to know, depending on the time of year. I mean, you can go up there any given time of year, but there typically are certain times of the year that this can be the case. But sometimes the water level is extremely low. And we'll put a link into a video of a time that I was up here where I'd say more than half of this reservoir was drained. So just understand that if the water level was recently dropped, this area that I'm talking about here can be extremely muddy and access can be really tough. So just be careful about the mud. You will sink up to your waist, if not deeper, in a second. So we actually saw somebody stuck out here up to his waist and needed help to get out. So just be very, very careful out here. But right here, you could see this little area. It's like a sand spit, and there's growth along here. Now, the key is here you want to enter from over this way. You can actually see where people have walked down and created little goat trails. These little goat trails are helpful. Just walk along the shore, and then you want to, as you get toward the actual inlet over here, you want to walk closer to the water, as this area right in here could be a mud hole. And I'm talking really, really muddy and scary muddy too. So yeah, don't do that. Don't ruin your vacation or lose all your gear sinking into this mud right here. So walk along the shore. It's a little more compact right here along the shore. And usually you could walk out to about right there. And this spot right in here can be spectacular. I've shot quite a lot of videos right there. And any given time, you'll have a great experience fishing that. Some people like to wear waders in this area, and you can, but don't risk. This mud is super slippery. It's not typical lake mud that's got a lot of rocks in it. It's literally grease. It is very greasy mud, and you will end up in the water for sure if you're not careful. So there is a channel that runs along here, and it tends to favor the opposite side of the shoreline here. So play with your cast and try to figure out what works best for you. But this spot, because of the inlet side in the hotter months, this side can be a really good place to start, just because of the colder water temps that are entering the lake, and fish need that cold water in those warmer months to survive. So the inlet is always productive, and it can be kind of busy. This can be one of the busier areas because it is one of the first stops on the lake, this inlet side. So don't be surprised if you see people up here. And the good thing is there's plenty of room in this area for people to fish. I've never seen it crowded. I have seen it busy, but never crowded. And some days, in fact, most days I'm here, we got it by ourselves. So, no worries there. Don't feel like it's like a park lake atmosphere and it's super crowded. It's not like that here at all. I'm talking, you might see 4 or 5 other people out here, even in the busier times. So the inlet is a spectacular place to start, and it is definitely making the list because of how productive it is. And like I said, the key here is to get your bait, lure, whatever you're using, into that channel. Without that, you're probably not going to catch anything. There are times where the fish will stack up on this. It's kind of like a I don't know. It's like a mesa. It's a flat underwater flat area here. It's about a foot to 3 feet deep. Sometimes the fish can be found in there really late and really early in the day, but typically not so. Usually they're right out here where I have this little pin drop in this area in here, all along here. And while you're here, you might as well try this section in here. It can also be very productive. As you can see, there's boulders tucked in here, and a lot of fish like to stack up in there. But this is more about the reservoir on this video, so we'll stick to that. We'll cover the Owens itself in another video, so stay tuned for that. All right, that's it for the inlet. Let's move on to number 2. All right, for number 2, we are talking about the rock, not the one in the movie, but the one here at PVR. You could see it right there in the video. So right past the inlet. I mean, you could see it really easily from shore. Totally easy to see and find. Why is this any better than any of the other rocks on this lake? Well, right below the rock, the river. When the water's down, there's river here, and the river has gouged out a channel that runs through here. Well, right here where the rock is, that river bowed out this corner right here, and as lake levels rise, it becomes quite the fishing spot. Caught some really nice fish. In fact, if you look up huge wild rainbow caught at Pleasant Valley Reservoir on here on YouTube, you will see a video of a fish my buddy Huck caught right here. Massive fish, caught right over here. The rock is an awesome spot just because of that. The channel runs really close. Now, just past it, down over this way, the channel is actually out over here, and it's a lot harder to get to it. But when you're fishing here at the rock, you can get to that deeper spot of the channel and quite a few fish a lot easier. And access is a little tougher here. This is where some hiking skills and some billy goat skills come in handy. Really steep and really crumbly along this shoreline. So, hey, be careful, use caution. I recommend wearing like a high top boot to keep boulders from smashing into your feet here. It happens a lot. So if you're wearing your Vans or some low tops, you're probably going to get hit with a rock in the ankle as you slide down these shorelines. It's quite loose right here. So my tactic here is spoons. People like to throw a bait rod out, but I really like to spray a spoon, casting into the channel this way and into the channel that way. Just the natural shape of this shoreline right here allows that. So definitely try a Thomas Buoyant or your favorite spoon in this area. Crappie jigs have also been pretty good right here in the past, especially when the water levels are up and it brings the fish in close. So excellent spot. And we'll do some flyover stuff. You probably have already seen that in this clip, and you'll see what that looks like from the air. But a spectacular, spectacular spot to fish year round. This is a great spot year round. The only time that you don't want to fish this, obviously, is when the water's really, really low and it's basically just a river running by through here. So, but if the water's up and it's a full lake, definitely hit this spot. All right, let's move on to number 3. All right, moving on from the rock, we are going to number 3, and it is the Pleasant Valley Reservoir boat ramp. Why is this spot a good spot to stop? Well, let's talk about that. and you can see there is a huge algae bloom when they took this shot. But why is this spot good? Well, this is where Pleasant Valley Reservoir receives its plants. They let the stock truck through the gate, and this is where they drive down to plant the lake. So what you end up with is large schools of trout um, that are basically going to hang out. It's a great habitat in the area. You have flat areas, sandy areas, rocky spots. You got a lot of good habitat, good drop offs, and the water is cool here in the summer. And so, just a lot of good reasons for the fish to stay. So they tend to stay. However, what happens? There's a large population of brown trout in this lake, and those fish know about these stocked trout. They, in fact, will hang around these ramps waiting for those fish. And if it's been a long time since a trout plant, then you probably won't see very many brown trout caught in this area. But once they've started planting this area, it's a great place to try to catch a brown trout, and a monster at that. So, a little bit about this habitat. Um, right here along the shore, there's some rocky areas that you can see right in here. These are some great places to throw a lure right off the ramp, or you could even walk along the rocks here and then just try a little bit further down. But this whole area is a great habitat for browns, rainbows, all kinds of good trout action through there. As you walk around the corner, now, right here, there's a little drop off between the ramp and the shoreline, especially when the lake is full. It's a little tricky there, so be careful getting down off the ramp. But as you come around the corner, there's some great shore fishing spots all through here. You've probably seen quite a few videos shot right through here by me, and you get great access to the channel that's out here. And on a good day, I can probably cast most of the way across this with a spoon, about 3/4 of the way across this. So to give you perspective of distance, you can reach the main channel out here, and it's pretty deep. I'd say a full pool, the channel's maybe 10 to 15 feet deep out here, and some might say it's a little deeper over here than here. I don't know why that is, but it certainly feels that way when you're throwing a lure and you let it sink. But right in here is a great place for the bait and weight. I have a lot of luck in here with all kinds of different baits, and everybody's got their favorites. But if you're a bait and waiter, this is a great spot to pull up. You will see a lot of the people that ride bikes to the lake. The ones that take the bikes down will end up here, and they bring their carts and all that, and you can just leave your bike right up here. No one's gonna take it, and it's just a great spot to fish. Good access, even if you're not a mountaineer like the other spots. You can make your way down to this spot, and a little bit easier access. They're still a little tricky along the shoreline at times, but for the most part, it's pretty easy going. And this is just one of those awesome spots because of the fish plants going in right here. It's always a good spot to try. So we'll move on. Let's get on to spot number 4. So for spot number four is actually a combination of two spots. And it's a spot I call the curves. You can see them in the satellite shot here. There are two identical curves in the reservoir. There's one here and one here. And what makes these special is the curve itself is a spectacular place when the wind is blowing. That's right. So when the wind is blowing, you get these so like let's say the wind is blowing from north to south. The wind will come off this corner and create like an eddy situation in these corners, and the fish just love that circulation, and it's just like a natural food gathering area on both sides. It's like a dead spot in the flow. So after that flow comes around the corner, everything slows down right here, and some bruiser fish tend to hang out in these areas. Now, these spots aren't always great fishing. I would say about 50% of the time they're pretty good. And the other times it could be hit and miss. But it is definitely, if you've walked this far, it is definitely a good spot to try, especially if you're going to the boat ramp. Now, if you've been to the boat ramp, this usually people that walk in from the north entrance of this lake, the boat ramp is usually the farthest they'll go unless they've had an e-bike or a bike with them. They typically won't go any further, but sometimes I would recommend these two extra little spots. If you're in the area and maybe it's crowded or there's nowhere to go, try these curved spots. Now, these are places where the access is a little rough here. This is where it does require some hiking skills. There aren't very many developed trails to get down to these spots, but these are areas that you want to try your big old we call them sticks. So something like a Rapala, a big old CD9, or whatever you have, the plugs, the bigger lures. You want to try those here, because this is where some of those big brown trout that have been sitting in here for many years could be found. So definitely just a worthwhile spot, just because of the flow and the food amounts that are in these areas is really strong. So you tend to get some of the bigger, more established fish here. Now, you won't see too many of the planter fish in these two areas, as the planter fish tend to move from the boat ramp. They actually tend to move this way, as opposed to out this way, depending on the water flows. Now, like I said, this reservoir changes all the time. They're raising and lowering the flows. It's just part of the irrigation process, for downstream. So be prepared to adjust to those changes in water depth and what fishing spot you're fishing accordingly. Because if you don't, you're probably just not going to be very successful. So that's why it's not a bad idea to bring a bike along, just so you can change up spots pretty quick. Most times you'll find me walking this lake because I just enjoy the walk. But sometimes it is beneficial to just ride the bike, especially in the summer heat. It's so worth it. So, but yeah, this spot right here, there's deeper water. And just remember, because of the deeper water, you want to cast out and let those lures sink. I see too many people fishing in these spots and they're not getting anything, and that's because they're not letting those lures sink. So cast out, let them sink, give it a good 10-second count before you start reeling in. If you're throwing a bait, you don't need to throw as far out of shore as you think you do to get fish here. You don't need to hit the channel here. There's plenty of fish really close to shore. So just a little tip there. But if you're running a spoon or a jig, make sure you get it down and bounce along near the bottom, and you'll probably have a lot more luck. So last but not least, let's move on to number 5. So for spot number 5, you would need to jump back into your car. You need to enter from the south side to get to this spot. So the way to enter, off of 395, you want to head in toward, like you're driving to Pleasant Valley, Owens River Campground. You can navigate here and you'll end up there. So there's a small turnoff right here. You could drive right past this. Most people are flying by here, but Pleasant Valley Dam Road. Make your turn there, head up the road. And again, we'll talk about the Owens River on another video. Just keep going until you see a parking lot. You're going to see a bunch of cars parked right there. You can see them. This is the parking lot for the dam. And herein lies the challenge to get to this spot. You got to walk up this massive hill. Not too bad. For most people in pretty good shape, or even in not in good shape, it's not that bad. It's short, but in the heat, this can be brutal. So again, in the summertime, bring water, and go prepared. So the dam. What's going on with the dam? This is one of my favorite places. And it is a 11 heat. I can't say I've always killed it here at this spot. Not by any means, but I have had some amazing days. And I'm talking some of the best fishing days in my whole fishing career have happened right here at the dam. And there have been some massive fish caught here over the years. So 100% worth trying. So if you're on the north side, you've tried the whole area, hey, you're not done yet. Try the dam, because usually if the north side of the lake is quiet, the fishing is popping down here on the south shore of the dam. So what's the deal here? Well, the challenges here lie in the walk down the rocks. If you're going to fish the corners, which is what I recommend, the two corners, you need to go down in the corners. So don't try not to walk down over here. It's a little bit sketchy, but right along the edge here, you can actually get down and fish right off of this piece that's part of the overflow spillway. And it's a little scary right here with kids. So if you bring your kids along, be very, very watchful of them, because if they fall in right here, it's kind of steep. It's hard to get out. It's one of those things where if you fall in, it's kind of slippery. We'll throw some drone shots in there and you'll see what I'm talking about. But right here, it is a good spot. Typically, the water levels, if they're really high, it makes it easier to fish from this cement ledge. But when they're far down, it can get really sketchy. So just be careful there. But if it is like that, you can see where the water is being drawn right here while it gathers up all the foam in this corner. That's because of the flow that happens in here. And I really like throwing spoons along these rocks from right here and letting them sink. It is deep over here. I have no idea how deep it is, but man, if you cast a lure out, it just seems to sink forever before it hits the bottom. I want to say it's at least 30 to 40 feet in this area. So it could be a lot deeper than that out over here in the middle where the tower is, but that's not exactly accessible anymore because they did put a buoy line there. You can't fish in this area. You used to be able to tube in this area, and I've actually kicked around out over this area, but they've had some rock falls in here, and they don't want people over there anymore. So but getting back to this spot, you definitely need to try it. Now, on the other side, same thing, really good access. You can actually see it right here. There's a little, let's see, right there where the red circle is. You can see the worn down trail to get to this corner. Spectacular fishing again in this corner. The key here is you need, if you're going to throw bait, be prepared to get stuck on rocks. These rocks that you're walking down continue out into the lake quite far, and you're probably casting bait that's going to land on top of those just underwater. So I highly recommend a bubble. And what I mean by those, they have these water bobbers that you can fill up with water, and they tend to rest real softly on top of surfaces instead of like an egg weight that will roll off of rocks and end up in a crack, and you're going to get stuck. So these water bobbers are just a much better way to go. Some people like to use bobbers themselves and just fish off the surface down here, and that's another super successful way. But I really prefer spoons and jigs because you can control the depth. You never get snagged that way, and it's just a great successful way to fish it. But like I said, this is a tough area for kids and such, but I do see kids and families down here all the time. A lot of them tend to bypass the dam itself and make their way over here and fish these areas here. There are some well used trails. You can't really see them too well in here, but all through here there's some well used trails that get down to the shorelines right in here, and it does produce. This is typically a better place to be in summer, and particularly near sunset or really early sunrise is the best time. Midday sun is brutal out here, and the fish agree with that, and usually go real deep and aren't really biting. If you're familiar with using a bobber setup where you can control your depth with the bobbers, that's definitely a way to go here. There's different methods to that because then you can drop down 10 feet below surface and then get at fish in the midsummer heat. Super successful way to catch fish here. So try that out here. But I really like the spoons, the jigs. And if you use a bait setup, really long leaders. You want like a 5-foot leader here just to make sure that that bait is hanging up above a rock instead of being tucked into a rock somewhere and the fish never even see it. But again, some monster fish have been caught down here, and it's definitely on the list. So that's it for number 5. So that's going to wrap it up from Pleasant Valley Reservoir and our top 5 fishing spots. There are a lot of other places to check out on this reservoir. There really are, but these are just the top 5 places to try out if you're new to the Eastern Sierra or new to the Bishop area fishing. This is just a great video for you. And hey, maybe you've been fishing in a long time and you had no idea about these places. And that's what this is all about. It's just getting people out there to try new stuff and encourage people to get out and try to fish. So, and hey, with gas prices and everything so sky high, and as things become more expensive these days, it's just good to have the information you need so you're not driving around trying to figure things out. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Look forward to more of these videos, and to catch those, you need to subscribe. So, hit that subscribe button. Consider going over to our Patreon. We do weekly reports over the places that I've fished recently and talk about much more than that and answer lots and lots of questions over there. So hopefully we'll see you guys over there. And again, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one. No matter how many times you walk this road at PVR, that view never gets old. Never, never.